Welcome here. How are you? Oh. Sorry. Listening to some Freddie Mercury. I realized my last video was kind of cut off. So today I'm going to read it again. So you guys understand everything that I was saying. And it's not cut off this time. I mean, I hope it doesn't. Otherwise my mics are having an issue or my broken laptop. Either way. Hope you enjoy it. Forget my husband. I'll go make money. Chapter 22. Husband name. Part 2. He felt prick. Like there were sun grains in his mouth. He wanted to say something, but strangely, nothing came out of his mouth. He didn't know anything about this woman, why she was confined, what kind of treatment she had received, what she had gone through. I don't know anything, but I can recall the first time he saw her. The back of one woman, enduring the ridicule and sneers of his siblings, all alone. I know one thing, that at least the insults from today weren't enough to really hurt her in any way. And with the way she didn't want to die, I talk about her life so casually. It means many people are aiming for her life. They must have treated her life like a trifling piece of chump change. If that's the case, then sending her to marry here was practically the same as sending her to die. There were people inside Irigo who wanted war. Tarkan's eyes narrowed, but instead of asking more questions, he changed the topic. Then, it must have not been your intention to arrive here looking like that, correct? Aristine nodded while putting the last scone in her mouth. Then she added, if you investigate a little, you'll find that I was indeed confined. Can you believe what I'm saying now? To some extent. Good. Aristine nodded in satisfaction. That was good enough for her now. This is my first time talking for so long, but I'm doing pretty good, no? She had spent almost her entire life without someone to talk to, due to her imprisonment, so with this much she felt she was doing a pretty good job. Certainly, she talked with the maids on their way to Irigo, but that was just things like come out, sit down, please eat, and such. You can't even call that a conversation. Her discussion with Tarkan today was the first real conversation that Aristine had experienced in 10 years or so. I have been trying my best to smile, but he doesn't think it's strange, right? He was deliberately smiling because in her Monarch sight, she saw that confident smiles gave considerable power in negotiations. Anyway, this ended well. She figured it must have been conveyed somehow. Main subject? I need you to lend your supports for my safety. After all, the world peace you desire is at stake. Aristine said with a grin, that is what you want? That's why you wanted my help and that win-win thing with each other? Mm-hmm. Aristine nodded. Her gaze seemed to be asking, what else could there be? Tarkan was a little stunned. This long conversation, all this talk about business relationships, win-win or whatever, was just so that she could ask him to help her guard her life? It was completely unexpected for that to be the first thing a wife was requesting of her husband. He definitely thought she was going to ask for something huge. But it was just this. Something so natural and fundamental. How in the world was she treated? Tarkan centrally intended to protect her, although this was based on the premise that she wasn't a spy. As long as she was bound to him by marriage, this woman was his responsibility. That was also why he got involved when his siblings were ridiculing her. Their insults to Aristine were the same as insulting Tarkan. Why am I bothered by those Sylvanus bastards? Regardless of how Aristine was treated in Sylvanus, it had nothing to do with him. Aristine was not Tarkan's responsibility at the time, nor did she have any relationship with him. Anything else? Huh? It was only after Aristine replied that Tarkan realized he had asked her a question. It had left his mouth before he could even think about it. He should have just let it go, while taking that her request was so easy, because it was about something so small. When this political marriage was decided, Tarkan planned on not concerning himself with his wife, which is why, when he heard Aristine talk about win-win or whatever, he just let it flow out of the other ear. It was the same even now. In his mind, he didn't gain anything by concerning himself with this woman, more than necessary, and it was a useless venture. But strangely enough, he never even considered taking back what he said. Something else I want. Not quite yet. Aristine began to shake her head. Then she remembered something, and her eyes sparkled. Ah, then can I run my own little personal business? No for the private coffers, but a little something for my own pocket. Initially, he was going to bring this up later, after building some trust. But if he's given me an opportunity, I might as well say it. Business. Wait, I don't really have a business addiction. Aristine waved her hand. There was a really good item she had in mind. There was an item that suited Irigo's situation perfectly and would fulfill the king's cherished desire. A medical scalpel business. Irigo was always in the battle against demonic beasts, so its metallurgy sector was very developed. The idea was to use the technology to make medical scalpels. This will definitely succeed. The scalpel that was currently being used was in the shape of a small dagger. It rusted easily, and most of all, it wasn't as sharp as its thickness. But if they were to make a scalpel, according to Aristine's design, the success rate of surgeries will increase exponentially. This was something that concerned a person's life. Even Sylvanus, a foreign country that had a bad relationship with Irigo, would try to find a way to import it into their country. And Irigo's image as a country of barbarians could also be reformed. In other words, the king's wish could be granted. Just think. How much benefit would that bring? As long as I can bring this business in, it will be huge. She might as well make the goldfields her own. However, Tarkan wasn't saying anything. Somehow, it made her uneasy. Money's precious, you know. Aristine began to toss over carrots in earnest. Ah, right. I guess you can call it proper negotiation when there is a direct benefit for you instead of something like world peace. For the sake of a fat, thick safe, Aristine enthusiastically began to promote herself. As I said before, I can deal with things on your behalf while you're gone. And this was an irresistible offer. Aristine believed it was. Irigo is currently in the middle of the battle for succession, isn't it? Normally, Hamil, the son born of the Queen's palace, would have been chosen as successor. However, King Irigo was delaying his decisions because of Tarkan. Born to a commoner mother, Tarkan was forced to leave and hand demonic beasts at 10 years old. And he came back alive. In fact, he did more than just come back alive. Tarkan killed Murzika, the great demonic beast that had been tormenting Irigo at the time. Needless to say, his position in Irigo rose drastically because of that. Naturally, this is not different from doing what is required of a wife whose husband is a prospective heir. Ardina stretched out a hand towards Tarkan. Let's help each other for our respective safety. Tarkan looked at the hand that was held out to him with unfamiliarity. Aristine's meaning was clear. He protects her, and she protects him. A partner. That was a very strange word. There were many people who followed Tarkan. If he stepped out in his courier right now, they would rush to kiss his feet. But someone like Aristine was the first. Someone who said they would take the same responsibility and play the same role on an equal standing. Do you know what that means? It was the Aristine who took him to see the king to prove herself and had this long conversation with him because she wanted to leave. If she jumped into the political fray, there would be new people aiming for her life. Oh my. Do you know the meaning of a political marriage? But Aristine only laughed leisurely and blinked her eyes. Tarkan grinned. Of course I do. Tarkan took Aristine's outstretched hand. Their fingers brushed, and soon their palms touched. Aristine smiled. I think we will make a good couple. As a business partners in a political marriage without love. That's the end of chapter 22. Now on to chapter 23. I know you're a pervert. Part 1. The princess is really pretty, isn't she? I've never seen someone who sparkles so much. I almost thought she was a fairy when she sat up in the water. Are all Sylvanians like that? I knew they had the small frames, but... You think they're all like that? You saw it yourself. Only the princess is special. I thought Sylvanus people were small and weak. But I guess that was just my prejudice. After all, they have someone like the princess. Have you seen His Majesty Tarkan when he's facing the princess? I never seen His Highness like that. The sound of the court ladies chattering flew through the walls. The maids who came from the Sylvanus Empire clenched their fists when they heard the discussion beyond the wall. What's so great about a bitch that was treated like trash? I'm worried the princess might not know her place anymore after coming here. Only these barbarians would see that filthy appearance and say it's nice. The prince's face does look good, and he looks a bit decent, but she's not that much of a beauty in Sylvanus. Exactly. I mean, I admit she's a little pretty, but definitely not that much. If I had to give a better description, I'd say slightly better than average, no? It's a barbarian country. They must have no beautiful people here. Of course, their standards are so low, that's why they're gushing over that idiot and calling her pretty. The maids put their front ends near. By the way, the man who they say is a monster, he's quiet. He's different from what I expected. The mind of the maids flew back to Tarkan's appearance, his broad shoulders, tight back muscles, and the ease with which he lifted Aristine. Honestly, it made the knights of Sylvanus seem like children next to him. It wasn't just his body. He had cool, sharp eyes, a straight nose, slightly pale lips, and a prominent yawn line. Just remember it. Made them sigh unconsciously. The murderous gleam in his eyes made them tremble, even though they were just looking at him from afar. He was a dangerous man, but that made him more attractive. But to think he was the husband of the princess, who they were so much better than. The beggar of a princess doesn't suit him. I know, right? Any of us would be better fit than her. He'll lose interest in the princess soon, anyway. The woman has lived alone for over 10 years. Anyone can tell she's off in the head. Oh dear. Then as a maid under the direct service of the princess, I must serve the princess' husband too, as well as I can. To the best of our ability. The sound of the maids giggling rang out loudly in the room, right when they were snickering and licking their lips. Your ladyship. When they saw a Sylvanus knight running from afar, the maids quickly corrected their posture. Have you heard? The knight's expression was grave. The maids frowned. Did the stupid princess wander around and cause trouble because she didn't know her place? If she did, they'll have to teach her a lesson. What is the matter? The princess met with the king ere ago. What? However, The trouble that the princess caused far exceeded their expectations. Why now? Then we should hurry, and they had to use the excuse of helping the princess and ran after her immediately. However, the knight shook his head. She already met with the king and returned. Right now she's talking with a monster of a barbarian. All the servants have been asked to withdraw, so we can't enter. The maids turned ghastly pale. Surely nothing will happen, right? At those words, Rosalind chuckled and shook her head. Do you think anything will happen? We're talking about that idiot princess here. You're right. The royal descendants who saw her must have told the king that a dirty woman came, so he summoned her. Then, since she's talking with His Highness Tarkan alone, the princess must have embarrassed him, so I'm sure he's furious. At those words, the maids relaxed, and ridicule appeared on their faces. The more Tarkan hated Aristine, the more they could stand out to him. I hope His Highness teaches the princess well. After all, she's lacking in so many areas. I'm sure it's exhausting for him to deal with that kind of woman. I'll have to offer him some tea later. Naturally, he should be repaid for taking care of our dear princess. The maids smiled amongst themselves, feeling more relaxed than before. After they were drinking tea, Tarkan personally guided Aristine to the room she was to stay in. Princess! The knights inside the room yelled as soon as the door opened, and he saw Aristine. Where in the world have you been to come back so late? Now that we're in Irigo, you better get your axes. The knight who was mouthing off shut his mouth once he saw Tarkan appear next to Aristine. Your Highness, Tarkan. The knight's voice trembled as he stuttered. Then he pressed his mouth shut, as if he was embarrassed by his own voice, and glared at Tarkan defiantly. Perhaps I misheard that. Tarkan muttered quietly while he looked down at the knight. This is none of your business, Your Highness Tarkan. This is a Sylvanus issue. That wasn't something a mere knight should say to the princess of another nation. Aristine was fascinated by the fact that he could act so strong when he was trembling like that. Didn't he know it made him look more ridiculous? Indeed, this is my bride's issue. As he said so, Tarkan approached the knight. Tap, tap. Every time Tarkan took a step forward, the knight fought back the urge to stop backward. The other party was only approaching slowly and defenseless, yet he felt strangely overwhelming. Pressure descended over him. A dog that bears its fang as its owner is unnecessary. Fuck! Just as Tarkan's words fell, the knight's face spun backward. It didn't just end with that. The knight couldn't withstand Tarkan's strength, and disgracefully fell onto the floor. Oh, that's refreshing. Aristine thought insensitively as she watched from behind Tarkan. What? Tarkan stoically stepped on the head of the flustered knight. I am a knight of the great Sylvanus Empire. The knight cried out, almost screaming. Ah, that's right. Tarkan stopped pressing down with his feet. The knight's face flushed with relief. How dare he do this to a knight of the great empire? I will make a formal complaint about this. This knight inwardly ground his teeth. However, Tarkan's next words were different from what he expected. You are my bride's dog, so I should leave it to her to deal with as she pleases. What do you want to do? Tarkan's eyes seemed to be asking that. Aristine realized something. That look was telling her he would listen to whatever her decision was. But on the other hand, he was also watching to see what sort of decision Aristine would make. Call it intrigue or expectation. The corner of Aristine's lips curled up slightly. Princess. The knight roared at Aristine. Look in his eyes, seemingly to be asking, "What are you doing? Hurry up! Tell him to get his leg off me." It was yelling at Aristine when he should be begging. However, the knight's momentum couldn't continue any further. Tarkan's foot pressed down on the knight with more force. His nose seemed to have been crushed because some blood splattered on the floor. The knight didn't dare to speak anymore, but he was only holding his tongue because he was scared of Tarkan, not because of Aristine. As evidence of that, he was glaring at Aristine, even with his head pressed down to the ground. The meaning behind his gaze was obvious. "Hurry up and stop him already, you stupid princess," or something like that. The fact that he was still thinking that, even at a time like this, made her wonder how his brain worked. Maybe she had been too quiet all this time, so he took her very lightly. "I mean, she has a nice face, and a nice figure too. It might taste good. Although she's dirtier every day, you just have to wash it off." "Come on, she's going to be marrying a monstrous barbarian. Won't she be overwhelmed with gratefulness if we, the great knights, treat her a little nice?" The knights shared offensive jokes about Aristine throughout the entire journey to Irigo. Aristine walked up to Turkin and placed a hand on his arm. Maybe he was surprised, but she could feel his muscles wriggle under her hand. "Oh, it's firm." Aristine glanced at his arm. Feeling amazed, the knight looked relieved, obviously thinking that Aristine came up to stop Tarkan. Aristine flashed him a bright smile. She looked just like a benevolent goddess. "The sacred couple is of one mind." Aristine's voice was soft, like she was singing. "Keep stepping on him." But her following words were merciless. And maybe she was mistaken. But Tarkan seemed to look pleased after she said that. Aristine looked at Tarkan with puzzlement in her eyes. He wasn't mistaken. Ha! Tarkan gave a toothy grin when he said to Aristine, "As my bride desires." His golden eyes gleamed darkly like those of a beast, and a low voice spilled lazily from his lips. He's excited because he's stepping on someone. Aristine secretly took a step away from Tarkan. "I knew it. He's a pervert." That's the end of chapter 23. Now, on to chapter 24. I Know You're a Pervert, Part 2. "Ah, it's clean now," Aristine thought carelessly as she looked at the floor, which was sparkling clean. Just a few minutes ago, there was blood all over the floor, making a mess of things. I wonder if his nose and teeth are okay. His nose was broken. His tooth from teeth fell out. So it might be hard for him to get married now. Tarkan didn't look like he was using too much strength while while stepping on the knight. But the knight was plopping around like a fish. Eventually, he lost consciousness and was taken to prison. Well, mankind is blessed if that sort of bastard doesn't marry. Aristine thought lightly and folded her thoughts on the knight. She was in a really good mood. Forming an alliance with Tarkan was her first goal upon arriving at Irigo. No, It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that was the first goal Aristine had in her life after living in confinement. She couldn't help but feel happy after achieving it. Furthermore, he seemed to be a good husband for a political marriage. He didn't even say anything when Aristine ate all the scones by herself. I hope we have tea together again. The raspberry and blueberry compote were similar, but they had their different charms. And once you added scones to it, it really enriched the flavor. If they had any other jam to serve, she would have loved to try it. Everyone told her she was going to her death, but honestly, Aristine was glad for this political marriage. Princess! Aristine lifted her head at the loud call. The maids have been shrinking and calling her for a while now. What? You say what? I called you so many times and you didn't respond. And at the same time, she mumbled. I knew she was a mental case. She was mumbling to herself, but she said it loud enough for Aristine to hear. Can you understand the barking of a dog? The maid frowned at Aristine's southern question. Of course not. Why? I suppose you think you understand it, princess. I guess anyone who's been locked up alone for more than 10 years can understand. There's no one to talk to, so you turn to dogs perhaps. Then again, you might be on the same level as a dog. The maids burst into laughter. But you know, at least dogs understand when you talk to them. You say sit, they sit. You say wait, they wait. Aristine slowly said in a soft voice, so you guys are worse than dogs. What? What did you say? Are you talking to us right now? They couldn't believe that the always docile princess was talking to them this way. The faces of the maids turned blue with anger. At first I couldn't tell who was barking like a dog. But as I kept listening, I realized it was worse than a dog. Aristine lazily popped her chin and crossed her legs. The maids couldn't understand what the heck was going on right now, after the knight reported to them that Aristine was alone with Tarkan. They were guided to the palace. Then they heard that Sylvanus Knight was beaten by Tarkan and dragged to prison. They were going to badger Aristine to do something about it. Something's not right. Aristine's reaction was strange. The maids pushed down their rising anger and turned to Aristine. If His Imperial Majesty learns about this, then what? Huh? Aristine chuckled softly. Her laughter sounded like ridicule to their ears, and the faces of the maids burned red. Aristine had been beneath them since they were in the Empire. She was confined without a single person to serve her, and she ate like a beggar, because she was barely allocated any budget. Even the maids that served the young ladies of noble families lived a much better life than hers. It wasn't just that. The palace manager felt pity for Aristine's situation and secretly allocated some of the budget for Aristine, so she could eat well without the emperor knowing, but the stupid princess couldn't even get that, because the families of the maids intercepted that budget. It wasn't a crime. If you think about it, the only one who committed the crime was the manager who secretly arranged the palace budget, without the emperor's knowledge. Their families only corrected what was wrong, although they put the money in their pocket without telling the emperor. Like that, the maids grew up thinking that whatever the princess had belonged to them. Whatever the princess enjoyed, they were going to enjoy soon, and they were far more noble than the foolish princess. Yet now, the fool was ridiculing them. Blinded by anger, Rosalind stepped to the front and screamed, "Have you forgotten His Imperial Majesty's words? What do you think he'll say if he learns about your attitude right now? Do not forget your duty, princess." The maids were the ones who held the leash, so that Aristine wouldn't do anything stupid. Or at least, that's how it should have been. They were definitely holding her on a leash just a while ago. My duty? Did you forget? Rosalind sneered. Aristine's role was to ignite a war. In other words, your role is to die. That's the end of chapter 24. I hope you enjoy it, and depending how I feel, I might put another chapter later. Thank you. Bye.